very warm welcome to Addis News Hour. I'm Solomon Danye. Thanks for joining me. Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mohammed, held discussion with Demeqa Mekonnen, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Ethiopia, to discuss the modalities of engagement of the African Union Commission on human and people's rights in the investigation of alleged human rights violations in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. The principle of the investigation was proposed by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed during a summit-level meeting of the AU Peace and Security Council held on 9 March 2021. The chairperson of the Commission welcomed the readiness of the Ethiopian government to cooperate with the African Union's treaty body. The chairperson expressed his appreciation to the government of Ethiopia for its openness to engage with the African Union and stated his confidence that the SCHPR will deliver on this important task. The European Union Council adopted conclusions stressing Ethiopia's important role as a strategic partner and a key multilateral actor. In a statement, it reiterated the EU's great concerns regarding the situation in the Tigray region and the wider region. In the conclusions, the EU urged all parties to ensure full, rapid, and unhindered humanitarian access to all people in need in all areas. It acknowledged the Ethiopian government's work to address some of the needs of the population in the region. The EU encouraged the Ethiopian government to enhance its cooperation with the African Union. The U.S. ambassador to Ethiopia, Gita Passy, says the USA will continue to beef up the humanitarian and peace relief efforts in the state of Tigray. This came while the Tigray interim administration briefed over 40 ambassadors in the state's capital yesterday. The CEO of the administration, Mulu Nagga, has called on global donor and humanitarian organizations to help reinforce Ethiopia's humanitarian rehabilitation and peace-building efforts. Shfaralak reports.
Ambassadors from over 40 countries were in Mekelle City, the capital of the state of Tigray, to personally witness the situation there and ask for clarification after being briefed on the humanitarian and peace-building efforts in the state. The CEO of the Tigray Interim Administration, Mulu Nagga, has updated the ambassadors on the relief and rehabilitation efforts going on in the state, as well as peace-building institutions. He told the ambassadors the fact that relief operations are going on in the state after the law enforcement operation. He also elaborated on the humanitarian rights protection efforts. Despite the fact that the government has provided unfettered access to the state, the contribution of international donor communities and humanitarian organizations is still only 30%. U.S. Ambassador to Ethiopia told ETV that the U.S. will stand by Ethiopia.
First of all, I'm very pleased to be able to have come to Mekelle with so many diplomatic colleagues. I've only been in the country a short period of time, and this is my first trip, and I think that it underscores how important we feel Tigray is. As you know, it's a focus for not just the United States, the government of Ethiopia, but many countries. You know, I'm the ambassador of the United States, so I can't address what other countries are doing, but I will tell you that the U.S. government, through USAID, has been the largest donor in Tigray for 3 decades, not for 3 months, for 30 years. And we also are the largest donor overall to Ethiopia. We've just had our disaster assistance relief team, the DART team, has been set out. They are active, they're already working. So the U.S. is exactly in the place we want to be, which is helping the most vulnerable populations of people in Tigray, in Ethiopia.
She added that as a long-time ally, U.S. will cooperate with Ethiopia in various areas.
I'm very, very proud to have them here, and we're very proud to be contributing in many, many ways. As you heard during the briefing, the U.S., through USAID, has provided about 6 months of food aid. I mean, this is very important, and we'll continue to do so. We are partners of the people of Ethiopia. We want this area and this nation to thrive. We care very much about what we do here, and we're glad and proud to be engaged with Ethiopia as partners to assist in this very difficult time.
The state of Tigray has taken the occasion to call on the ambassadors and international donor communities to help beef up the support of the humanitarian and relief operations. The ambassadors, who asked various questions for clarification, have pledged to stand by Ethiopia in its effort to provide relief and humanitarian assistance. They've also appreciated the briefing, underlining that such moves will create more clarity, thereby showing the openness of the government of Ethiopia concerning the situations in the state of Tigray.
Ethiopian diasporas in New York held demonstrations protesting against foreign intervention in Ethiopia's internal affairs. The rally is an extension of Wednesday's demonstration this week in Washington, D.C. One of the organizers from Washington, D.C., Lidet Muleta, said Ethiopia values other countries supporting bilateral relationships, but intervening in internal affairs is not compromised. Emmanuel Jorge presents the story.
Among the organizers of the demonstration in the U.S., Lidet Muleta said that Ethiopia is not the first country to go through law enforcement operation, but America also had somehow similar experiences before. She pointed out that they can advise or support on bilateral relations, but intervening in internal affairs is never compromisable.
We want the U.S. relationship with Ethiopia to continue. But we also would like internal matters to stay internal. We would like advice, support, and bilateral partnerships. But Ethiopian Americans did not appreciate the message that was put out the last few days in regards to Ethiopia and its internal matters. The United States, and there was similar law enforcement operation that occurred, and it was a matter where the rule of law had to be upheld. So this is not something foreign even to the United States government or the United States citizens.
She underscored that they want the United Nations to understand that they are shouting for those people who are victimized in the operation and for all people of Ethiopia, and against false reports as the Ethiopian government is attacking its own people.
We're also raising our voice to UN Security Council to consider the Ethiopian government's stand. We're not standing for any victims to be harmed. We are actually standing to make things work for the entire 110 million people in Ethiopia. And there has been a lot of negative media that has been perceiving that Ethiopia is attacking its own citizens, which is not the case.
Ethiopian diasporas held a huge demonstration today in New York, standing by the Ethiopian sovereignty to fix its internal affairs solely.
Thank you, Russia! Thank you, China! Thank you,
Meanwhile, humanitarian activist Amai Bayena praised Ethiopians residing abroad for serving their nation as diplomats and soldiers to maintain their national interest. Goshmaliso has more.
The versatile singer and human rights activist Amai Bayena recalled the previous clear demarcation between the former Ethiopian government and its citizens residing abroad. However, he said the situation is being changed currently. He praised the active involvement of Ethiopians living abroad in the country's socio-economic and political aspects. Tammany reiterated that every citizen should discharge their responsibility to correct structural gaps in the government.
Supporting the government does not mean completely do not criticizing it. There are many gaps and questions with regard to the government's structures. One should not be considered as an enemy because he spoke out against the government. The same goes true when one supports the government. Even though we have differences, we should not compromise issues that challenge Ethiopia's tranquility and unity.
Tammany said Ethiopians residing abroad are playing a significant role as diplomats and as soldiers to preserve their country's interest and sovereignty. Despite the political differences that Ethiopians have, it is now time to stand in unison and replicate what our forefathers did in such hard times, he added.
We may not agree with government policies, but it doesn't mean the national interests of the country and unity should be compromised. Keep in mind this. There are a lot of questions that the government has not answered yet. Great rallies have been held in Washington, D.C. and New York on Wednesday and Thursday. The message of this rally is to hammer that it is impossible to violate the national interests and sovereignty of Ethiopia. If press us in such ways, we all Ethiopians are soldiers and fight for our rights.
He also called upon Ethiopian ambassadors to discharge responsibility, thereby maintaining Ethiopia's national interest.
The government should review its foreign policy and assign diplomats based on knowledge who can preserve the national interests of Ethiopia. On the other hand, there are retired ambassadors with rich experience in the diplomatic arena who served their country for many years. Thus, the government should form diplomatic team. Therefore, embassies should work together in collaboration with Ethiopians in various countries. We should not see crossing our hands while Egypt, Sudan, and America pressing us comprehensively.
Tammany Bayene, who is well known for his philanthropy works for IDPs in natural and man-made disasters, was in exile for many years.
The government of Ethiopia has unveiled a 5-year Lowland Livelihood Resilience Project with a 2.2 billion per in Afar regional state. The launch of the project was held in Samara town in the presence of senior government officials and representatives of various stakeholders. Afar Regional State Lowland Resilience Project Coordinator Derisa Ali said the 5-year project will be implemented in 250 localities of 20 waredas in the region, calling on the community stakeholders to contribute their share for the success of the initiative. State Minister of Ministry of Peace, Kadiaka Gazahain, to his part said the government has been undertaking various community-based activities to transform livelihoods of pastoralists across the nation. Finally, the Ethiopian Accident Investigation Bureau said on Wednesday that it plans to release a final report on the fatal crash of the Boeing jet in the near future, but looming in the background is a disagreement over the report's findings by authorities in the United States. According to the people familiar with the probe, tensions over how to characterize the findings of a probe into an Ethiopian Airlines 737 MAX crash 2 years ago have prompted U.S. investigators to consider taking the unusual step of issuing separate comments with their conclusions. Kasan Janesmo from Al Jazeera.
The work is in the final stage, the Transport Ministry said in a statement on Air's Facebook page Wednesday, without giving a publication date. The update coincided with the second anniversary of the Ethiopian Airlines jet disaster outside Addis Ababa, which killed all 157 people on board. Looming in the background is disagreement over findings in the report, said the two people familiar with the behind-the-scenes activity. They asked not to be named while discussing the highly sensitive talks between the two nations. The United States National Transportation Safety Board have been concerned about pilot actions during a fatal flight and how systems on the jet should be described, said one of the people. The Ethiopian report was still being discussed between local investigators and external stakeholders, said a third person with knowledge of the matter in Ethiopia, who also asked it not to be identified. Calls and messages outside regular working hours to Ethiopian investigators at the Ethiopian Civil Aviation Authority and Transport Ministry seeking commands were not immediately answered. The NTSB continues to work with Ethiopian investigators to assist them with completing the investigation, which includes reviewing their draft final report and providing their commands, the United States agency said in a statement. Following the provisions in Annex 13 of the International Civil Aviation Organization, all investigative information will be released by Ethiopian authorities. At least some disagreement has existed for months, espionage officials in Ethiopia and the United States investigators in Ethiopia had been prepared to conclude the cause of the crash a year ago, but held off issuing those findings after objections from the United States and France, Bloomberg reported.
And before we go, a reminder of our top stories. Ethiopians in the diaspora rallied against foreign intervention in Ethiopia's internal affairs. And tensions loom between US and Ethiopia in 737 MAX crash probes. Well, that's it for the news. For me, Solomon Danya, and the rest of the English team here in the studio. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.